Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Station 11. It's a limited series out now on HBO Max, HBO I would imagine as well, and it is a show that blew me away. So well made, so well performed, so well written, apparently based on a book, which almost, this show's so good, it almost makes me want to pick up a book and read. I haven't read a book in, I'm going to say a decade. I'm 41 now. Let's just say, to be safe, a decade it's been since I've actually picked up a book and read it. I definitely remember trying to read some books. I got myself a Kindle back in the day and tried to, but audiobooks, I just can't pay attention. I love podcasts. But this show was so good, it almost made me revert to wanting to read again, which is not a bad thing. It's a good thing to read. Everybody go read. Don't watch this show. Don't listen to this show. Go pick up a book and read. It's fundamental. But that's how good this book is. Amazing performances, like I said. Amazing writing. This is like a story that, on one hand, hits very close to home. It's a story that takes place kind of pre, during, and post-pandemic. A pandemic that was quite a bit worse than the current pandemic that we are currently living through at the moment. Year 2 so far. This pandemic was quick. If you caught the virus, you died. Plain and simple. All of the anti-vaxxers never existed because it never got that far. Society crumbled pretty quickly. But this show, tells this story about these people using different points in time. Like, it jumps between day 0, it jumps 20 years ahead. There's some aspects of the story that take place before the pandemic that really, and it shuffles between them throughout the telling of this story. So it's not told linear, which I love. Because one of the big themes of this show is how history repeats itself. Especially people who have survived trauma tend to repeat those traumatic events in certain things, or make life decisions based on traumatic events that lead them into similar situations that caused them trauma to begin with. So there's a lot of repetition in this show. Just kind of in such a beautiful way. It's also a show about art and how important stories and art are to human culture. Just from a standpoint of when everything goes bad, what is the one thing humans are good at doing and creating? When the world around you has been consumed by destruction, what is it that humans choose to create? And art is that thing that, that initially, when you erase capitalism, when you erase kind of these societies that are built on this like fabricated system of how to live, when all that stuff is erased and everybody's just alive and just surviving, there's still aspects of human nature that are bad. But also, it's like the human desire to create, the human's desire to also be destructive. We have that desire as well, with anger, whether it's self-harm or harming other people. So this show examines all of those different things, but it's also about, like, what do you fill your life with? Like, given a life, like one of the great lines of this show that keeps repeating throughout, like so many other kind of themes and so many other like quotes, is I don't want to live the wrong life and then die. Like, it's a very important theme, and so many of these characters are just living their life, creating. I mean, you're following along. It starts with a play, right? You have the great actor Gael Garcia Bernal is like this famous actor in this show as well as in real life, playing this character Lear, this William Shakespeare play in a theater, and he has a heart attack while performing his portrayal of Lear, and that's kind of where this story kicks off, because then one of the children, who is an actor as well, part of the play, and one of the theater goers who was the first to notice that he's having a heart attack, they kind of get linked together in this like almost survival thing, where initially it's just him trying to get this girl home because her wrangler went with Arthur, who is Arthur Leander, who is Gael Garcia Barnell's character's name. She goes off with him to the hospital. So this girl, this 8-year-old girl, is now stuck with this theater goer guy who's a nice guy. And they are, throughout this whole story, you're seeing those are two of the main characters. You're seeing Chivan, played by, what's his name? His name is Chivan Chaudhry. Hamish Patel is his actual name. Character is Chivan. And then the young Kristen is played by Matilda Lawler. Amazing performances. You also see the older Kristen in the 20-year ahead version of the story being told, played by Mackenzie Davis. Amazing performances, top to bottom. The writing of this show is just so beautiful. It's so beautiful to see a post-apocalyptic story that focuses so much on art and so much on the importance of humanity's desire to create. It also shows humanity's desire to live in the past. It shows humanity's desire to block out traumatic things that have happened in the past. It shows the power of storytelling for good and for bad. You have these people that are part of the traveling, what are they called? The traveling symphony. And they basically are going, it's this traveling theater group and of musicians and actors that just do a tour around Lake Michigan, because that was the area when shit hit the fan and society crumbled. That's the area they happen to be, and they're still there, just kind of circling Lake Michigan, going to different towns, different areas where people exist, and they move on. And they do that specifically because if they stay, then they will be looked upon as, as people taking advantage. But if they go in, they entertain, and they leave, then when they come back around, they're like praised for coming back. Which, I mean, from an artistic standpoint, that is so much of, in a lot of ways, the business model for a lot of artists, whether it's musicians or fine artists or actors, directors. Like, sometimes you have to, like, being prolific isn't always a good thing. Leaving people wanting more is kind of the way in which you can maintain like a level of interest in what you're doing. So that's kind of like this reality where you have this girl who was 8 years old when the reality of the world crumbled around her, but she has this, like, her passion is acting. Like, she's one of the few people on Earth that found her passion so early, versus the person she's stuck with, Chivan, doesn't really know what he's doing. Like, he's kind of directionless. He has within him this need to help people. This need, he's kind of like a healer. His sister is a nurse or a doctor. His brother is like this brilliant writer who's played, the character's name is Frank Chaudhry, played by Nabhan Rizwan, amazing as well. He plays Cheevan's brother. So he comes from like this very successful family. He's kind of the black sheep, never really was able to find his passion in life. But throughout the course of this story, you see that he is like, I mean, even from the first episode where you see him rush the stage, they're in a theater. They're in a giant theater where people pay a lot of money to see plays. And he noticed that the lead actor was having a heart attack before anybody else and rushed the stage. Right? Which, if he was wrong, would have been a huge disruption for a play. But he was right. And it's that desire within him to want to help people. And that kind of desire within him, despite the fact that it's not necessarily easy. He's scared. He's vulnerable. He's doesn't necessarily have confidence in himself, but is still led by his desire to be a helpful person. I mean, and you see that when he's trying to get Kristen back home. The Many Faces is an ongoing abstract ink portrait series that I started many years ago. I release a new face every day, but go to inspireddisorder.com to check them out. So many available. But as a listener to The Ray Taylor Show, you can save 10% when you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out. So go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF, that stands for The Many Faces. Go check them out, browse the entire collection, and when you decide on a piece, or maybe multiple pieces, make sure you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out, and you'll save 10%. As a big thank you for checking out my work, for collecting my work, and for listening to The Ray Taylor Show. And with that said, let's get back to the show. He's trying to get this 8-year-old girl who was just like chaos just exploded in this theater because the lead died in the middle of the performance. And nobody cares. Her wrangler's off. She's gone. So now he takes it upon himself to get this girl home. They get there. Meanwhile, in the background, this virus is spreading. But so they're like two unlikely, teammates, survivors in this thing. And Cheevan gets a call from his sister to like, go get supplies, go to Frank's house, and barricade yourself in. That's the only way you're going to survive this thing. And he listens to her, despite the fact that there's clearly family issues going on. And that's just kind of how this whole thing starts. And then, like, you jump ahead like 20 years, and you're seeing like this adult Kristen, and you don't know Cheevan's not around. You don't know what happened to Cheevan. But she's older. She survived somehow. She's clearly like had to survive brutal situations. Like she's still an actress. Like her passion from childhood never changed once the pandemic hit, because she became part of this traveling, touring theater group. But to survive in that kind of reality, you're not going to come out without killing people. And that's the same where whether you're watching like a zombie show or whatever, like The Walking Dead. It's like it's not if you've killed somebody, it's how many people you've killed to stay surviving. And they're not battling zombies in this. They're just battling other humans and potential human nature. Where the traveling symphony is these artists, these creative people who are constantly on the move. They never settle down. There's these other little townships or whatever that they go and visit that have their own people. And then there's like these red bandana people that are like just dangerous people out to cause harm, So it's like this world filled with all these kind of different ways of living, but they're not really focused on that. It is so much more about the power of art, the power of stories. You see in this thing the story that causes so much of the kind of the thrust of this show is the story. It's a graphic novel called Station 11. And the story of Station 11 is mimicked in a lot of way in the story that you're watching. It's told a little bit different, and then you see how that story, which only two people were gained access to. You see Kristen and you see the guy, what's his name? You see Tyler are the two kids that end up getting this book. And you see how a story can, on one hand, provide somebody with like a way to exist and survive in a horrible reality. But then you see, on the other hand, you see how somebody can use a story to control people. Very much like religion, where some people rely on religion to help them, to comfort them, to, be there for them and guide them in their day-to-day in a positive way. And then there's people that just want to get rich. They want to have basically their franchised cult, and they want to take advantage of people. So you see that, the power of story in both of these characters. But you also see how those characters kind of become. You see how Tyler becomes the prophet. He basically turns kids into terrorists with this story, because he's got this anger. But then you also see so part of this you also see, flashback before the pandemic. You're seeing the woman who's always had this story in her, and she's wanted to create and get the story out throughout most of her life, not to make money, not to publish, not to show other people, but just it's a story within her that she needs to get out. And it's, again, that desire of, like, what are you going to fill your life with? She has a job pre-pandemic, but, like, that's not her life. That's how she pays the bills. But that's not, her life isn't filled with her job. Her life is filled with this desire to get this thing out of her that she needs to express. And even though it wasn't like it in contradiction to, like, the Bible that is, everywhere, like it's probably more copies of the Bible have been printed than any other book in history of mankind, I would imagine. That would be I'd be pretty confident betting on that statistic. This story is the complete opposite, where literally only two people got their hands on this book, graphic novel. But still, even though it was a small thing, these two copies of this book had a giant impact in the world, especially after the pandemic, where it's like these two people, because of this book, have it's taken them in completely different directions. One, a more positive use for the book, and one, a far more negative use for the book. So I appreciate that kind of duality in the power of a story and how easily somebody can use a story to manipulate people. Just give them hope, and within that, you change some things, you modify some stuff, you prey on young people, you prey on desperate people, and it's interesting. This movie also tells, like, this story from not only different points in time, but you're also seeing certain scenes from different perspectives. So as the series goes, you'll see, like, a phone call that happens from the perspective of the person making the call. And then 5 episodes later, you're seeing it from the perspective of the person that's receiving the call, and the circumstances at which that person is receiving the call are drastically changed over the course of this show, that make it like it fills in the gaps of what's going on and how everybody is like interwoven. It's very much a small world that exists in the few people that survive and that are like linked to each other within the story. But I appreciate that. I appreciate that it could easily be like just showing you a replay of another scene. And it doesn't do that. It shows the scene. It adds more context to the scene by showing it from a different perspective and also showing you more. It's like every aspect of this show is so beautiful. It's so well crafted. So well done. And I don't know if the book is structured in the same way where there's a lot of flashbacks, flash forwards, like you're kind of going back and forth in time. There's also a scene where the older Kristen is poisoned and she has these dreams, which is also kind of a flashback scenario where they're jumping back to the time where she was young and newly living with Cheevan and Frank during the pandemic. They're locked up for 80 days before they left, and it's like what happened within those 80 days. And there's this one moment that she goes back to while in a fever dream, and it's this beautiful scene where you have the older Kristen acting with the young Kristen, and they're going back and forth, and they have, because of their different experiences, they have different, like, slightly different motivations, and because of the age different, like, takes on different. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. Like, as far as storytelling, it is so amazing. What else is there? And a lot of it is asking the question, like, what is a life when everything is gone? When the kind of societal structures and systems that we exist in now, governments, business, capitalism, different governments, we have infrastructure, we have grocery stores, we have factory farming, we have the internet, we have cell phones, we have technologies, car. Like, when all of that stuff is gone and humans are just humans now existing, they are animals again. They're not living to go get a job. They're not living to like societally prove a point in some way. Like, what kind of a life do you live when all of those things are gone? Which I appreciate that too. And there's even a scene, like there's a scene where like different people, so you have like Kristen and Cheevan and Frank surviving in this like really nice apartment in Chicago. Then you have these people who are in an airport, who is Arthur's ex-wife, their son, his old friend, which I'm forgetting. I don't think he's on this. Man, is his name Dieter? No. But they're in an airport. So there's different locations and then there's like a golf course kind of community. There's a gas station that's kind of like this waypoint kind of an area. So you're seeing even these locations become characters and growing in time, changing in time, I should say, where where nature is slowly reclaiming humans' bullshit. Like, over the years, the gas station starts getting overgrown by like rose bushes and stuff, and then you see like the airport is slowly turning into like a giant commune, and you're seeing this golf course being turned into like almost this bunker type situation where they're protecting themselves from the outside influence, outside enemies, aka the Prophet, or even red bandanas. Like, there are like these threats, and you see all these people and how they're handling different things. And the airport stuff is super interesting. You're seeing the kid Tyler, who pretty much, while the world falls apart, he also learns that his dad dies. So everybody is kind of, Kristen is also like realizing that her parents are dead. He's realizing his dad is dead. Like, Cheevan and Frank are realizing their sister's dead, girlfriends are dead. Like everybody that existed pre-pandemic are lost everything. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. Lost everything. And then you have these kids who were born after who don't have that, have no idea what life was like before. They've only existed in the aftertime. But when Tyler was a kid in the airport, one of the things before like the internet went out, whatever, was he had like this handheld gaming device or whatever that he could like download web pages from. So like his job, one of the things that he was assigned to do in like preparation for like before everything gets shut down is to start downloading like information about society. And there's this scene with his mom who doesn't really give a shit. She's a horrible person. She, but whatever. There's like all of these people have arcs throughout this thing. But there's a scene where he's a kid and he told his mom, it's like the internet finally went out, and he's like showed her what the last page was, which was the wiki page for capitalism. He asked his mom, should I delete this one? Because he knows capitalism is bullshit, ruins society, even as a 12-year-old kid or however old he's supposed to be. Then his mom says, no, humans would probably invent it again anyway. Which maybe they will, but at least leave it up to them. For sure delete it. But it's like, it's a scene that's like, it's a very short throwaway scene, but it in so many ways is similar thematically to what this show is talking about. Like what would people do when all of the bullshit of modern society is gone? Capitalism specifically. When money doesn't mean anything, what does a dollar mean when everything's gone? What does going into a job that nobody gives a shit about you, what is that worth? It's like, that's not what life is. Life isn't about working at a job or working for somebody else or trying to collect a paycheck or being somebody who's making more money than everybody else. Billionaires don't exist. Like in this reality, like the poorest person on planet Earth is equal to Elon Musk. Although Elon probably would have jumped on a spaceship to Mars and probably would have died out in space somewhere, along with like Jeffrey Bezos. Because God forbid a billionaire be stripped down to the same level as everybody else, the same level as the poorest person known to man. Because they all now have nothing. They are all equal. When all things being equal, what really happens? Which I really appreciate. So yeah, this tour they go on, they call it the Wheel. They actually have like a wheel on one of their wagons that has like a map of Lake Michigan and like all their different spots and all the different towns that they renamed it. Yeah, it's let's see if there's anything else. Because I don't want to go into real spoilers of this. I don't want to go beat by beat. I just want an overview of what I really appreciated about this show. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just letting go of the baggage of the past. but also like how you do that. Like that's so much of what like the airport turns into the Museum of Humanity or whatever. I don't know if that's exactly what it's called, but they basically collect things from the past to try and remember the past. They're trying desperately to hold on to the past. They also have electricity because the airport had like solar panels and stuff. So it still has like as far as all of the places that are around, it is the only place that is still holding on to like the modern amenities of the past, pre-pandemic. And that's not good. That's not healthy. Because pretending you're in the past doesn't mean you're in the past. Pretending you're in the past means that you're not properly living in the now. You're not really moving forward in the future. It means that you dug your heels in way back in the day and you've decided that you're not going to do anymore. That like this. I want to exist. I don't want to come to the reality that existence has changed for humans. And because of that, I need to hold on to what the past is. So I don't know. So you have this story, this beautiful story about these characters trying to survive, and even the link between Tyler and Kristen, the fact that they were both given this book from Arthur, who was Kristen's mentor. They had a bond before he died. She never got to say goodbye. Obviously, his son never got to say goodbye. But they were both given this book from the ex-wife of Arthur. She finally finished it, printed out 5 copies, and then gave both of them to Arthur. One that he ended up giving to Kristen, and the other one he gave to his son. So they have a link where they both know this story, this prophecy. And you see kind of you see how they both are two sides of the same coin. Because they know this story so well, but how it's used and how it affects their lives and how they choose to how they choose to live their life is vastly different. But yeah, like there's this point where you see them doing Hamlet. Like Hamlet's another one of like a repetitive theme throughout this story, because each year when the traveling symphony goes around Lake Michigan, they do a different play. And this year they're doing Hamlet. So you're getting to see them performing Hamlet at different points, which is also another repetitive thing. It's also a device, a tool that's used by Kristen to help people communicate with each other that don't know how to communicate with each other. Like she's using like basically therapy through acting therapy, you could call it, where it's allowing these people to open up and have like similar kind of contextually similar motivations that the actors in Hamlet would have, which I thought was brilliant as well. Like so many aspects of this is brilliant. Like emotionally, it's a roller coaster. You're seeing like just raw survival and just a story that inevitably has a good conclusion. The way it wraps up, I thought was beautiful as well. And I would almost love to see more of this. I would love to see more stories, but at the same time, I don't. I'm like, good. I'm good with what they did. And I started rewatching it a couple days ago. I think I missed the last episode. Last night I decided not to finish it, to stay up late and finish it. But even through the second watch, after seeing it the first time, waiting a week for the new episode to come out, and then finally being able to binge the full thing, the second viewing makes it so much more impactful, I think, because you already know how the story's being told when it jumps back and forth through time. You know all these characters so well. You get to sink into like their motivations more. You get to see how intricately interwoven all of these different storylines are. The rewatch of it is, I would say, even better than the first watch, and the first watch was amazing. So I highly recommend checking it out. It's on HBO. It's called Station 11. Just a great show that I know, like, people probably scarred, damaged, trauma from the current pandemic, but for me, I didn't think it didn't. Like, at no point did I feel like this rubbed me the wrong way, I guess. Because despite the fact that it's a flu virus that destroys the world, because the one we're dealing with isn't that strong yet. I mean, maybe it will ramp up to that. I mean, as the current pandemic is allowed to evolve in all of the people because governments need to keep capitalism open, we will probably get there. I mean, that's what it really feels like. Capitalism and profit and money are far more important than humanity on every single level, whether it's the pandemic, the virus, or climate change. Like, there is zero. It's just all like just saying the words that people want to hear and then going back to business as usual is really what it feels like. So kind of getting into this story and seeing, like, it almost makes me wish I could exist in this world. Like, I would love to be part of the traveling symphony, right? This, like, communal family. You get to create your art for a living. Like, that is what your life is, to be an artist, to be a musician, to be an actor, to do creative things and create things, and not have to ever think about or worry about, like, a bill. Just all of the just disgusting reality that we currently live in and exist in on a day-to-day basis. So I almost yearn for a time where I could live in existence like that versus, the current reality humans exist in. But yeah, again, check it out. Station 11 on HBO. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind